Good evening, everyone. How's everyone feeling this evening? Good. So my name is Henry Butler. I am the Vice Chair of the Kings County Democratic Party. I also serve as District Leader of the 56th Assembly District, which covers the neighborhoods of Bedford-Stuyvesant and North Crown Heights. Before I do my introduction, we're going to have an intro video from the County Chair, the Honorable Ranice Bichat Ermeline.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Brooklyn Democratic Party's Judicial Candidate Community Forum. I am the party chair, Ranice Bichat Ermeline, and I wish I could have been here in person, but as a New York State Assembly member for the 42nd Assembly District and the Assembly Majority Whip, I am in Albany advocating for New York State during our legislative session. However, you're in great hands with our party leadership person to ensure a transparent and engaging forum is witnessed and respected. Thank you for attending this important community forum. Your participation is incredibly valuable and welcome. We want to hear the voices of every Brooklynite in the House. I'd like to give a massive thank you to our party ad hoc Judiciary Committee for hosting this forum, and I sincerely thank all the civil court judicial candidates and surrogate for engaging with our party and our community at this forum. This community forum is a historic new step forward to ensure every Brooklyn Democrat is more engaged and knowledgeable and provides the most input possible for the party's nomination of judges that have a lasting impact on our lives. The Brooklyn Democratic Party is dedicated to promoting diversity and inclusion by endorsing competent judicial candidates that serve the needs of all Brooklynites fairly and impartially. Last year, we nominated a dozen New York State Supreme Court justices for the Democratic ticket to run for the bench, and it was the most diverse slate in history, and they all won the election. We now have an unprecedented 7 Black women Brooklynites representing us. That is truly incredible. Now, we have candidates running for 4 open seats to the Brooklyn Civil Court bench to serve 10-year terms and surrogate for 14-year term. The elected judges will have a say on matters as diverse as our borough, ranging from housing cases, family cases such as divorce or custody, consumer problems such as debt or bankruptcy, and more. The ad hoc Judiciary Committee with 5 highly knowledgeable district leaders who are dedicated activists is starting a unifying and transparent process that engages each assembly district across Brooklyn and the district leaders that represent our communities. This community forum is the first step, with much more community engagement to come. Each judicial candidate here is extremely qualified and has been thoroughly vetted by our Kings County Judicial Screening Committee. But qualifications aren't enough. We want to make sure each and every judge on the bench has a keen understanding of the diverse needs and issues of all of our corners of our borough and is culturally competent. Once again, thank you everyone for attending this very important community judicial forum. Have a great day.
I'll be brief. So, as the chair said, this is very important to us. First, I just want to welcome community residents, community partners, county committee members, and my fellow district leaders to tonight's forum. If you did not know how important judges are within this system, you got a very clear lesson last year with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. You got a very clear lesson last year with overturning of some of the gun laws rights throughout this country. So we now have an opportunity to put the judicial races at the forefront. Because of redistricting, there will be council races this year, but for most districts, there won't be any challengers in the primary. So the only thing you will probably see on your ballot are the judicial candidates. We, the Kings County Democratic Party, want to make sure you, the voters, know exactly who you are voting for and why you are voting for them. All of us, including me, have picked up that ballot, looked at judicial candidates, and had no idea who they were. You know, we all are guilty of that. I know I am. So we want to make sure that for this year and moving forward, when you look at that ballot, you know exactly who those candidates are and why you look to vote for them. I want to give a big thank you to our committee, led by our committee chair, Ms. Dana Racklin, and she will introduce the other members. And she will introduce the other members of the Kings County Judicial Committee. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up my remarks so we can get this started. I know you have plenty of questions for the candidates, and now I bring up the chair of our Judicial Committee, Ms. Dana Racklin.
Okay, is my mic on? Yes, we hear me? Okay, good. So I'll also be brief, but I'm going to do a Civics 101 lesson with everybody here. So good evening and welcome to the first community forum of many to introduce judicial candidates to my esteemed colleagues and constituents across Brooklyn. As Henry said, my name is Dana Racklin. I'm the female district leader for Assembly District 50 and the chair of the brand new Judiciary Committee. Before we dive into tonight's program, I want to give a very big shout out to the Wythe Hotel and Peter Lawrence for donating this space and the staff to help make tonight really successful. Carl over here on tech is saving our lives. We will have no technical difficulties. And then I also want to acknowledge all of my colleagues who are in the room. District leaders are here. We're supposed to all be wearing our lapel pins, but if they're not, they're in trouble. But then also the committee chair, the committee members, two are in the back, Kanasia and Sarana back there, and Jackie Painter and Mike Boomer somewhere in the room as well. Thank you all for making tonight happen. Okay, and also I'm hearing all the time, what is a district leader? So for those of you in the audience and those of you live in the audience and on Zoom, what is a district leader? It's an unpaid volunteer role. If you know me, you're not surprised that that's my job, unpaid and volunteer. We're in charge of voting for party leadership, choosing poll workers, nominating judges, things like that. Obviously, we're here tonight because of the nominating judges part. So we're taking a real effort to make sure that we're doing things different this year. We want this process to be more dignified for the candidates so that we're actually learning about them and hearing about their experiences, both in courtrooms and in the criminal legal system, but also in life. And then we also want to make sure that you as voters and community members who have lived experiences having to do with the criminal legal system are having your voice heard and engaged and active around who these individuals are. So all but one of these candidates, Bernard, this guy on the end, are vying for a seat for a civil court judge. Civil court judges are people that sit in housing court, family court, small claims court, things like that. Surrogate judges are judges who oversee things like estate planning, wills, things like that. So please get educated on these things so that you know who you're voting for and why and what types of qualities you want to see in them. So now I'm going to be quiet. I am sitting up here because I'm going to make sure that we stay on track as far as time goes. And I'm going to turn the mic over to each of our candidates to do a very brief 30-second introduction about who you are. So you'll all get to know them, and then we will turn to our audience for questions. Okay, sound good? Y'all gonna help me keep them on track with time. Yes, 30 seconds, got it? Okay, so we're gonna start over here with the lovely Miss Marva Brown.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Dana and the committee for holding this forum. I'm Marva Brown. I am a candidate for Kings County Civil Court in a county-wide position. I am a public defender first and foremost. My legal career has been representing clients in criminal court, misdemeanors, felonies. I litigate cases, trials, misdemeanors, homicides, all matters. I am also a proud resident of the North Crown Heights community. I'm a member of Brooklyn Community Board 8 and president of the Friends of Brower Park, which is a little park adjacent to the Brooklyn Children's Museum. I'm a mom of 3, and my husband and I are raising our children in Crown Heights, where we contribute to the community by doing lots of wonderful events, educational events in partnership with the museum, the library. And so my goal of being a judge is to bring justice to everyone and give everyone a fair opportunity to appear in court, have their cases be heard, and have the opportunity to have justice served on their behalf. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming here tonight, especially the community. The community is the reason why I do what I do. My name is Linda Wilson. I am a 3rd-generation Brooklynite, and I live in the Prospect Heights community. I do a lot of community service in my neighborhood. I'm involved with the Precinct Council, the Civic Council, the Prospect Park Alliance, and I do a lot of charity work around children, families, and education. I'm a 30-year veteran of the New York City court system, the New York State court system, in fact, and I have experience working as a career court attorney and a dedicated public servant in the Surrogates Court, the Civil Court, the Supreme Court, and in the Appellate Division of the New York State Supreme Court. So I'm prepared to handle every type of issue that any one of us in our lives has ever experienced in the courtroom setting, and I can resolve any conflicts that come before me. Thank you so much for your time.
Good evening. Again, thanks everyone for this opportunity to get to know me better. My name is Monique Holloman. I'm running as a judicial candidate countywide, which means that on every ballot, you would see my name. I am a resident from Brooklyn, born and raised, and I am currently working in the court system as a court attorney. I've been in the court system, both in civil court and Supreme Court, for 13 years. And with that experience, I currently work in the foreclosure part, and I administer all of the statutory settlement conferences for the residential foreclosures that are owner occupied. So part of what my job is to do, a good portion of the people that I interact with do not have representation. They do not have they do not have representation, and they're pro se, which is what that means. So my goal is to even the playing fields, to make sure that we as a community are represented and understand the needs of what we need, how we can retain our homes, how we can look at working at getting people fixed. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Turquoise Haskin, and it's a pleasure for me to be here as a candidate for Civil Court Judge countywide. I would like to be a judge because I believe it's one of the most powerful and impactful ways that I could be of service to my community. I believe it's my calling. I'm a native Brooklynite, and I'm a graduate of NYU and Emory University School of Law, and I have a great wealth of experience, including my work as a court attorney in both Kings County Civil Court as well as Kings County Supreme Court for my judge, as well as extensive experience as a litigator and experience working at the HPD and the New York State Attorney General's office. I also have a great resume of community service. I believe that my great diverse experiences will serve the bench well, as I will serve with integrity, fairness, and justice as your next civil court judge. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you to our district leaders, and thank you all for coming today. My name is Betsy Jean-Jacques. I've been an attorney for about 16 years. I am born and raised in Brooklyn to immigrant parents who are from Haiti. I have a law degree and a master's in social work. I did that because I wanted to see the law in a bigger lens, and I wanted something to enhance my view of what my clients are going through. I spent 11 years of my life driving all around Brooklyn, all the way from, and I know Brooklyn by hospital, Brookdale Hospital, all the way to Woodhall and beyond. And that's because I represented vulnerable populations of people, including adults and children who have psychiatric issues, as well as elderly persons who were victims of elder abuse. I currently work as the right hand of a judge. I work in Supreme Court civil term, where I work for a Supreme Court judge doing motions, research, and writing. But the other thing that I do, and the thing that I love the most, is that we prepare students, seniors who are in college who are disadvantaged, for law school. And the other thing I've done, I'm incoming president of some associations. I've had leadership roles in many bar associations. And the reasons why I did that is because I was trying to help the community. So that's how I've helped my community. And most importantly, I've taught, well, see you later.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, district leaders, for hosting this. I'll try to do my 30 seconds. I'm an administrative law judge at the New York Department of Motor Vehicles in the Traffic Division. I've been there for 6 years. But prior to that, I was a litigation attorney. I had my own practice. I represented people in Brooklyn in family court, housing court, criminal court, and civil court, and in federal court. For the last 4 years, I've been supervising 7 administrative law judges to make sure that when you have a traffic court ticket and you come in, it's not just seen as a traffic court ticket, that you're given the fairness, that the judge listens to you, understands what you're saying, views all of the evidence, and then makes a decision after that. And that's what I'll bring to the civil court judge, because the only real difference is the subject matter, not how you treat the person that's before you. Thank you.
Hello, neighbors. I'm Kenneth Gale. I'm a private attorney in practice for more than 10 years, born and raised here in Brooklyn. Both my parents graduated from Tilden High School. I graduated from Brooklyn Tech, then attended Fordham Law. Before that, I worked at City Hall as a liaison, serving the people of Brooklyn, and now I am here to serve as a judge because I think the bench needs diversity. Under 30?
Good evening. First of all, my name is Bernie Graham, Bernard Graham. I want to thank the committee for putting this together. I've been a judge for 17 years. I was elected to civil court in 2004. I don't recall there ever being a gathering like this in the whole time I've been a judge. So I want to thank the county chairman, Dana, the committee, and all the district leaders. I am running for a surrogates court. Surrogates court is the court that handles everyone who passes away, administers their estates, deals with their family, provides guardianships. In my estimation, it's one of the most important courts in the city of New York. There are only 2 surrogates. 1 vacancy is in place right now. I am currently the acting surrogate, and I'm running to be the elected surrogate because of the situation that the surrogates court is in. It's through a number of problems over the last couple of years. It's backed up. People aren't getting their probates and their estates processed, and it really is horrific. So that's why I'm running. Thank you.
We are moving right along. Everybody here understood the assignment. Thank you. So to start with our first question for the night, I would love to call on one of our young people, Kamel, right here in the front, to kick us off. When you're asking your question, can you just say your name, your neighborhood, who you're representing tonight, if anybody, okay?
So good evening, everybody. My name is Kamel Lucian. I'm from Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. That's the heart right there. And I'm here on behalf of Youth Represent. And I want to thank you for being here tonight, and a special thank you to Dana. Okay, so my question is for the youth that gets arrested, right, and they have a case in family court, how would y'all use your power to make sure that the youth acts why would you use your power and discretion to make sure that the youth get the safety that they need and support that they need instead of just jailing them? So that's my question.
Thank you, Kamel. So we'll give each candidate, again, try to stay in 30 seconds to answer. We'll start that way.
As a a judge, it is imperative that the best interest of the child is always kept top of mind. As a judge, I would look into programs that could help to navigate that youth to be a prosperous member of our society. So I would always look to programs, diversion programs, programs where they could get the adequate training and the adequate lessons in order to learn from the mistakes they made and follow up with them on a routine basis to ensure that they are productive citizens, that they continue to grow and learn from their mistakes, and I could serve as their mentor throughout the process.
Good evening. Thank you. So as a judge, I do think it's important to understand the community that we are, the community that is in front of us. So it is important as when we're dealing with the youth, although I do feel that it's important to deal with everyone in the same way. The youth, obviously, we have a special concern in terms of recidivism and things of that nature that would bring them back into the system. So I do think it's important to move forward and look into programs that we can discuss with the youth to make sure that they can further benefit in the society that they're in.
Thank you. That was a phenomenal question because it showed your great understanding of what a judge's role is. A judge is to follow and interpret, analyze the law, but a judge also has discretion to make the right decision, to make a just decision. And with regard to youth and family court, I'm keenly aware that our children are very, very delicate and that their minds aren't fully developed. They're not keen to always make educated and wise and informed decisions. I'm a mother of 6 children myself, 5 of whom are in their 20s. So when you talk about youth getting in trouble, sometimes it's not of their own making. Sometimes it's circumstances in their families, in their homes or in the communities. And to know what the problems are and how to resolve them is something that I'm equipped to do because I do handle family court matters. And when I do that, I make sure that people are heard and that justice is served. And justice for children means that they get all the opportunity in the world to recover.
Thank you. So as a public defender, I have represented juveniles in court who are charged with crimes. And I think it's really important that our state legislature enacted Raise the Age, which allowed young people to go to family court to have their entire lives examined. It's unfortunate that sometimes kids do come from homes where they don't have the supports that are needed, and in family court, they are able to receive the services, but also their parents get services as well, so that the family as a whole can work together to improve their life situation. So I would get to know the whole family and make sure everyone has what they need to be successful.
Also, I'm going to say, just say your first names again so that people at home remember who everybody is.
Hi, I'm Betsy with the second E. I just want to say one of the most important things I think that we don't often do is ask more questions. As a judge, you are taught to be fair, you are taught to be just, but also to look at the facts and look at the law. But for me, having a master's in social work, I know that there are other things going on. And your first mistake or your second mistake shouldn't be the thing that defines you in your life. It's the changes that you make and the opportunity to make those changes. So when I look at situations, I'm looking beyond what you're charged with. I'm looking to see what's going on in your life.
Hi, Siobhan. First and foremost, as a judge, when you put us in office, we have to follow the law. That's first and foremost. Whether we agree with the law as it stands, our job is to enforce it. So when you're dealing with children, for me, what's important is some of what the other candidates said, is to sort of identify the source. Why did that child end up in that situation in the first place? And when you can identify that problem, then you can work on finding out how to resolve it. So that would involve the family, the school, the church, if there's one, and just sort of, you can't do it as a judge, but you can designate social workers to come back with the information so you can make an informed decision.
Ken, and I agree with Siobhan that as a judge, you're limited in what you can do. But I will say that having practiced or as an intern in law school, worked at Neighborhood Defender Services of Harlem, I do understand the importance of criminal defense, legal advocacy, and having that advocacy in a neighborhood or in a setting that is comfortable, therefore it provides the intent it was purposeful for. Let me just say that there's a reason why the standard of proof in criminal trials are higher than civil, because we take liberties very serious. And as a judge in the family court setting, in a criminal charge, I take it serious. Sorry.
Hi, Bernie. I don't know if I mentioned, I was in the family court as a judge for 3 years, so I saw a lot of these situations up close. The one thing that myself and my colleagues all agreed upon was that children should not be sent to secure facilities, because that is a path then for a life of being stigmatized and probably leading to criminality. There needs to be more diversionary programs. There are some, they're not enough. We need more social workers in family court, and there's a lot of writing about what is needed for children at risk, and that needs to be followed through with our state and local governments.
Okay, our next question is coming from Jeff Berman. Oh, Jeff's over here.
Hello, my name is Jeffrey Berman. I am a 25-year public defender with the Legal Aid Society in Manhattan. For the past 8 years, I've served as a mental health lawyer in my office. I am here today as a proud member of the Treatment Not Jail Coalition. The Treatment Not Jail Act is legislation that's pending in Albany that would significantly expand the state's drug court statute and codify mental health courts into law so that judges have discretion to order court-mandated treatment over a prosecutor's objection, which would lead to the dismissal of charges. So here is my question. Should you preside over criminal cases, how will your daily rulings and decisions demonstrate an acute understanding of the intersect between the criminal legal system and public health, and that public health equals public safety?
Thank you, Jeff. So we'll start this way. Again, please just say your name so everybody can remember. We're going to have a post-panel survey for folks at home and in person, so try to remember.
Thank you. Betsy, one of the things, as everyone has said on this panel, you have the law and you have to follow the law as a judge. But I think that it's very important to look at all the facts. It's not cookie cutter, to look at it individually and look at all the circumstances that you're given, especially if there are mental health issues. So if given that opportunity, I will be looking at everything. I will be looking at the options that you have and maybe the possibility of a least restrictive alternative. Thank you.
Siobhan, judges should always exercise as much discretion as they can where they can, because other than that, there's no fair adjudication, right? Other than that, we just cookie cut and put guilty, guilty, or not guilty without any thinking in the process. So mental health is a real thing. I think we've all seen that, especially post-COVID, and I think to ignore it is very dangerous. I continue to learn about it. I don't know a lot about it, and I think that as judges, we have to defer to the professionals who understand this and to give us the information to make the right decision.
Ken, and let me say that I'm 45, so I grew up during the crack epidemic, and I'm from East Flatbush, and my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was the head nurse of the Kings County Emergency Room. So should I preside over a criminal part, I think my rulings will show that I have an acute understanding of the intersection of criminal justice, criminal activity, and public health. I mean, anyone from the part of Brooklyn that I'm from can tell you that public health crisis, mental health crisis are real and probably should be addressed by someone else besides just the criminal justice system.
Bernie, it's not likely that I'm going to be sitting in any criminal courts. At my age, it looks like it might be either in Supreme or going to surrogates court. But I did serve as the mental hygiene judge in state Supreme Court for a year and became very familiar with mental illness. And I could see that although we were a civil court, the connection between mental illness and criminality is very real. it needs to be handled as a disease and an illness as opposed to criminality. And for what it's worth, I would agree with everyone who thinks that there should be more treatment than criminality. So I fully support your position.
Yes, thank you for your question. I also agree that it is imperative that a judge carefully evaluates the facts in every instance and understand the circumstances that led that particular party to be before him or her in court. I'm very sensitive to the needs of the community. My judge served in mental hygiene, and that's a part that involves mentally ill people. Oftentimes they have substance abuse issues. So it is imperative to take an interdisciplinary approach, bring in social workers, bring in programs to assist that person and rehabilitate that person, and make sure that they can be on the road to recovery.
Thank you, Monique. I actually also, similar to what Turquoise just said, as I've been in the civil court for a number of years, I've actually worked in mental hygiene as well. I think it's very important that the totality of the circumstances are reviewed when we're looking at any case. And if I were to preside over the criminal court, I think that it's important that we do look at programs. I am actually very glad to hear and know all of the different things that we've been doing in terms of benefiting the mental illness of the community. And so I think it's important that we make sure that we give them the type of services that are needed, that we aren't as quick to put them in situations where they're locked up, especially where there's a mental illness. And just as a sidebar, my daughter's a therapist, so I continue to learn every day about what is needed and how we should continue to grow and learn more about mental illness on a daily basis.
Thank you. I also have a daughter who is a licensed mental health counselor. But that aside, I have realized over the years that mental health problems and mental illnesses in particular are very nuanced. I shared an office with an attorney for many years who suffered from a mental illness that no one knew about until she committed the most unspeakable crime that could happen. And it looked like it came out of the blue. And when the police officers came around to ask, do you think she did this intentionally? I said, she has a long history of mental illness that needs to be discovered. Based on my own experience with mental illnesses, I would say because they're nuanced, we always have to keep the experts involved. Judges don't know all the answers when it comes to non-legal issues. So I would first and foremost consult and understand the humanity of the person who is the victim of a mental health crisis crime, as I call it, but also the person who's suffering.
Hi, I'm Marva Brown again. In my representation of clients in criminal court, I've definitely represented clients that suffer from varying degrees of mental illness, have set in on the 730 exams and negotiated with the Office of Mental Health and Hygiene, OPWDD, and other government agencies that provide services to our mentally ill citizens. But I think the most important thing to remember is that they are members of our community and they deserve a place within our community. They deserve our support because just like a person who has diabetes or health disease or heart disease, people with mental illness deserve our love and support and care as well. And so we should make the services available to them so that they can get the proper treatment that they need.
Thank you all. We're getting better and better without time. So next, I would like to call upon Derek Hamilton. Derek, you have to give us all the titles.
All the titles?
Yeah.
All right. How you doing? My name is Derek Hamilton. I am a co-founder of the Family and Friends of the Wrongfully Convicted and the deputy director of the Perma Freedom Clinic at Cardozo School of Law. So my question is, as attorney and judges, you have a responsibility to improve the criminal justice system. So can you give me an example of some of the things you've done to improve it and what you would do as a judge to improve it as well?
Bernie Graham again. I would agree with you that there needs to be improvements in the criminal justice system. My whole career has been on the civil side, of course, but I do have to tell you, when I was sitting in weekend arraignments I was seeing young men being arrested for being in a park after dark and being open beer containers and spending the weekend in jail. I actually called Bill de Blasio. I said, Bill, this is a real problem. And this was early on. And hopefully one of the few good things Bill de Blasio did was he did act on that to tighten up that they shouldn't make those arrests. But my experience is in the civil side of things.
Ken Gale, and that's an excellent question. One of the things that I learned when I worked at Neighborhood Defender Services is that a good criminal defense attorney is not too paternal, and that I was way too paternal to be one. I'm a good dad, but not necessarily a good criminal defense attorney because I always want to tell my client what I think is best. That being said, I've taken those feelings and used those emotions to teach my neighbors, my friends' children, the people around us in the nonprofits we run and we engage in on the rules of the criminal justice system and how to best seek advice and criminal representation when they need it. Another thing that I do is I make sure everyone has a card so that they can say, call my lawyer.
Siobhan, one of the things that I've done to help the criminal justice system is I taught a legal research course at Rikers Island to detainees who were awaiting trial. So what I did was teach them how to use the very outdated law books at that time, just to understand the charges that are brought against them and what's necessary that the other side has to prove to inform them of the process. Because a lot of them, they had no idea of what had to be proven to show that they were accused of what they did. They had no idea where their case was in the process. So it was important to show them how to find this information so they could have intelligent conversations with their lawyers.
I was a mental health lawyer for 11 years, and a lot of my clients were locked up in psychiatric institutions, often pending, waiting criminal charges or criminal issues. And a lot of those times, I spent that time trying to reach out and get resources for them, explaining to them, what to expect. I have sat across a client who was accused of holding a gun at a psychiatric facility when the police were coming. And I explained to my client, because of the way you look, you're going to be judged. Because of the way you look, they may ask, shoot first and ask questions later. So what I did was do my best to help him stay calm, to make him understand I'm here with him, and we're going to do our best to get through that situation. And I can tell you that he gave himself up. Nobody got hurt in that situation, and I quickly got him criminal assistance.
Trying to be fair.
Spreading the wealth. I'm Marva Brown. My contribution to the criminal legal system has been being a fighter and champion for the people. As a public defender, I fight in court every day for my clients, for their families, for their place in the community. And in addition to that, I teach, right? I have junior attorneys that second seat me on trials, and I help them to develop their skills so that they can be the best lawyers possible, because it's always so important for me to emphasize that just because you can't afford a lawyer doesn't mean you shouldn't have the best representation possible. So my contribution is my practice, my education and training of young lawyers and law students as well.
Hi, Linda Wilson. I am a recent graduate of the Citizens Police Academy. And the reason I attended the academy is because I wanted to learn what happens on the front end of the criminal justice system. Fully aware of what happens in the courts because I'm an integral part of that process. I believe wholeheartedly that if we are going to reform a system, we cannot just do it from the outside. We have to do it from the inside out. On the inside is where you can be most impactful and most do that most expediently. Thank you.
Thank you. Similar to Justice Graham, I have spent the majority of my years in the court system on the civil side, so a lot of the work that I've done on the criminal side has been based on my community service and things, and joining with programs like the DA's office Begin Again program, different programs that were enabling individuals to get warrants released and so that people weren't getting arrested for warrants and being held for a significant amount of time for things like drinking beer out of a can. The the other programs that I've been a part of is also helping individuals that have maybe committed crimes to help with justice success programs and also other types of outreach, just to make sure that individuals felt that they could actually have a relationship with the criminal, with not the criminal system, but with the judicial and the court system, so that they weren't afraid to come to court and to attend and to get their rights.
Turquoise. Similar to Monique, I had the privilege of serving on various warrant forgiveness programs in conjunction with churches around the borough and with the Kings County District Attorney Office, as well as the Queens County District Attorney Office. And I realized when I spoke to individuals that were coming there to get their warrants expunged, it was oftentimes for things very minor, such as an open container, being in the dark, being in the park after dusk. And I realized upon speaking to them that oftentimes these warrants were unevenly applied to members of the population. So I saw the disparities at hand, and it was rewarding to be involved in that process and to assist the judge that was expunging the warrants in her research of cases throughout her service.
Okay, next, thank you, everybody. We'd like to hear from Jolyn. You could just raise your hand so that they could see you with the mic. I think your mic's not on.
Hello, my name is Jolene Grant, and I'm a senior from the Urban Assembly School for Law and Justice in downtown Brooklyn. My question today is, violent crime is perceived to be at a crisis level by many experts today. What do you believe is the appropriate role for the judiciary in addressing this perceived crisis? Thank you.
And just so everybody knows, the young people speaking tonight all wrote their own questions, and I'm so proud of them. So let's be. Okay.
Betsy with the extra E. What I think is important in this moment is that we remember that judges can, review the law, be fair and just, and also there's a part of judges that doesn't just happen on the bench. It's talking to young people, it's meeting with them and explaining, how the law works. A lot of times, by doing that, we empower you and people like you to do the work, to be activists. But on the bench, we have to be fair, we have to apply the law, we have to assess every situation on an individual case-by-case basis.
Siobhan. I agree with Betsy. As a judge, we can't get involved in that. But I think the root of the problem is that children, young people, don't have anywhere to go. They don't have any place to be that's interesting for them after school, on the weekends. And so they end up in these places where they can get into trouble. So the community needs to get together and put out more programs where these children can come when they're not in school, so that they can direct their energy in a positive way. A lot of times these young children don't have role models. They don't have people who are, who hold jobs down, who have positive influence in the community, and that's lacking, and that needs to increase.
Great question. I grew up during what some said was a violence crisis, about 4,000 murders a year. And I think about a great Black judge who was around during those times, a guy named Bruce Wright. And I think the best you could do, like Justice Wright, is resist sensationalism and stick to the facts. Stick to the facts. Stick to the prescribed sentencing guidelines that come from the legislature, empower the voters to change things through the vote, through lobbying their legislators, and as a judge, stay on the bench.
Thank you, Bernie Graham. As I'm hearing the question, I had two thoughts. One is, I agree with Kenneth, there is a sensationalism of the violence. My son is a journalist, and he often argues with me saying, Dad, it's not as bad as the papers are making it sound. They're just doing this to stir the pots, make people scared. That's one thought. There is violence, and I'm not putting it down. But the other thought that I had is that back in the day, as we say, there were fights with sticks and rocks. Nowadays, there's guns. And guns are really, I believe, the most serious issue we're facing. There's a lot of legislators who are trying to pass legislation in New York to clamp down on the ghost guns and everything else. And that's where the direction has to be.
Yes, gun violence is definitely a concern in our community. It's important that we have programs to nurture the youth, programs that put the community first, such as Chair Racklin has a program, Build a Block, and it's community-led. It's driven to help to nurture children, to identify their traumas and how to assist their traumas, because if a person is whole, they're less likely to create discord, to be involved in crimes. So it's very important that a child is understood in a whole sense, a holistic sense. And it's great that we have programs like that, as well as Life Camp, Erica Ford, and all the great things she's doing in the community to address and combat gun violence.
So I do think, and I do think there are a number of programs that have been created to help with that. As a judge, I think it's very important to balance both, because again, like we have stated, it is important that we're fair and that we are making sure that we follow the law. But I do think that as a judge, you do have opportunities in which you can offer a commitment to the community in such a place as being present, being aware, having access to students, to coming into the courtroom, to speak with you about criminal matters, to have more programs within the court system that have you involved over in the DA's office and different areas, so that you can actually see what's happening, and to also, like Judge Graham said about the sensationalism, maybe identify that some things are not necessarily as bad as they seem, but to feel like you're active in the community and you're taking an active role in helping.
Thank you. Linda Wilson. So when I think about courts and justice, I can't help but to think about community, and the two vowels that the words justice and community share alike are you and I. I cannot be a member of the courts and help it run efficiently and to administer justice without bringing the community into the process. The community needs to know the courts, and the courts need to know the community, because we're serving you. And if we do that in partnership, we'll know what the needs are. And it needs to be reciprocal in order to get the best results that the community needs to keep each other safe. And if we see the humanity in people, we'll understand what that is exactly.
My name is Marva. I'm so glad that you go to Urban Assembly, because when I was in high school, I did criminal justice career explorations, and it got me to where I am today, so stick with it. I think it's just so important when we're talking about violent crime to think and acknowledge the fact that crime, the numbers are not what they used to be, right? New York City in the 80s was a whole different animal than what it is right now. And so we have to be realistic with the fact that, yeah, there's cameras everywhere, there's cell phones everywhere. We are just inundated with these images, but it's not what it is. And I think the judges, it's unfortunate that we can't fight in the same way that we do as attorneys, but we can support the organizations that are promoting real community safety.
Just to stay on topic, let's turn the question over to Frank in the back there. Just because we're in the gun violence movement.
Yes, how are you today? My name is Frank Ter. I'm the program director for New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. I'm here on behalf of my team, Rebecca Fisher and Shannon Harrison. Just a question. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dana, for having me tonight. Here's a question. So I do like the idea of folks talking about gun violence being sensationalized, right? I do think that is a big issue to combat narratives and things we see. But I think it's been asked before. But in terms of your role as judges, what is communities? What can they do in conjunction with judges and the law to kind of combat gun violence in the communities?
Sorry. Which way did I go?
Betsy with two E's.
So one of the things that I think, and I do a lot of, is partnership with bar associations, and also reaching out to them to have programs that talk to youth about what's going on. And one of the things that's also great is if, people can come to courtrooms and observe and see what's going on. And so, reaching out to the judges that you know, or even just judges like myself, I'm ready to go and seek you out and talk to you about what's going on. So knowledge is power, and the more that we as a community work together on both sides, so that you understand the law and then we know what's going on, it's important.
Siobhan, I think what judges can do more of is go back to speak at different schools and different communities. I'm a first generation college graduate, first and only attorney in my family. I pursued this, but it's not because I saw people like me doing this. It's because it's something that I wanted to do. And a lot of young people need to see those role models so that they understand they have options and choices. And that will sort of influence their decisions to have a gun, to use a gun, because they can see themselves down the road doing something positive, where you will need a background where, you don't have a criminal history to pursue that.
It's important to have a diverse judiciary because of the type of decisions that judges make. And in regards to gun violence, how many times have you heard the story of a young kid or a young person who doesn't have a history of social deviance feeling that they needed a gun to protect themselves? And it's a judge who's going to listen to the facts brought forth by both sides' attorneys and weigh those facts and make those determinations. And you really, in regards to gun violence, you want people on the bench who are able to make the distinctions between someone who is afraid and someone who's a predator. Thank you.
Hey, Bernie Graham, that was a good question, and I think one of the innovations that the court system has had was community courts in neighborhoods, which provide a kind of close down to the ground type of resolution of problems. There's not enough of it. I know there was one in Red Hook that was very successful. There was one judge there who got a lot of attention for 20 years, whose name escapes me, but Judge Calabrese, correct. And I think that should be the direction that the court should go, maybe even having peers of young people there also, so that might get the message that we can't be doing this on the streets.
He's a good judge.
Yes, I would definitely focus on keeping the court an open forum. It's important for children to come in to see what arraignments are like, to understand that gun possession are bail eligible offenses, and see the implications and the ramifications of having guns. So I think it's important for, in many ways, to actually kind of be scared straight, to actually see what are the outcomes and what happens if you do go that path. So I think that the justice system plays a part in that process, so that children can learn from others, so that they don't have to repeat mistakes previously made.
So I'm going to actually piggyback off something Kenneth said. I do think that it's important, first and foremost, to understand the reason that our youth have turned to gun violence in the first place. And I think it's important to understand that safer communities would make a situation where actual students who feel that they aren't safe wouldn't need a gun. So I do think it's important as a judge, I think that is important for us to stay out in the community and to continue to have programs that would actually benefit students from interacting with the courts, interacting with the police stations. And I think there's another piece there where I do think it's important for the actual community boards and the police and the civic associations come together as a unit, so that individuals have more access and exposure to the community itself, and maybe that fear would be alleviated.
Hi, again, Linda Wilson. I think we need to, when considering how to avert gun violence, we're not just talking about our youth. A lot of the gun violence is being perpetuated by full-grown adults. And to that end, we really do need to meet people where they are, find out what the underlying reasons are, what are the traumas, what, right? It's hard to know, because people are suffering from a multitude of a plethora of things that are leading to that. Let's not forget that guns are a Second Amendment right in this country. So people have guns that we don't know about, and we never hear of them using them. So to the degree that they're being used illegally and that they're being used altogether is a problem that we really need to root out by meeting those folks where they are, folks of all ages.
Thank you. I'm Marva Brown, and I live in Crown Heights, and I am right across the street from Brower Park. That is my front yard, and I've been in the park where people have pulled guns, and my kids are out there. I've been in the park where people have shot guns, and my kids are out there. But what I'll say is the community response is so important, and really sharing with whether it's a 50-year-old man or a 16-year-old kid to say, yo, you can't do that here. We're not going to allow you to do that. And I think it's so important for the community to get involved in public safety and making sure that everyone is safe, because it's our responsibility. We all live together.
Okay, switching up a little bit, I'll call on Eric. Yep, raise your hand so I can bring you a mic.
Thank you. For many people.
Eric, wait, can you tell us who you are and what you're representing?
Yes, I'm Eric Hune. I serve on county committee. Since 2018, I've served as judicial delegate, and I am a community activist. For many people, judges are a person's last opportunity for justice. However, courts, judges, the legal process, and attorneys are intimidating, and especially if that person can't afford an attorney. We understand that judges are bound to the law and procedure. However, if you recognize that a person who appeared before you had not properly prepared their case, what would your approach be to them?
Thank you, Eric, for that question. I already spoke to poor people not being able to afford attorneys, but I think it's important as a judge to really say, hey, let's slow down here. Make sure that if you're appearing in front of me pro se, that you have the resources that are available to the public when you don't have representation. There are resources in the courthouse where people can have access to forms where they can fill out proper petitions, they can get the law and written in layman's terms for them so that they can adequately present their case in court. And so I think it is the responsibility of a judge to say, okay, everyone deserves access to justice, and the fact that you can't afford an attorney or you don't have an attorney should not be a bar to justice. We have to make sure people are aware of the resources that are available to them.
Linda. So when you are a civil court judge who is elected, you can be placed in civil court, criminal court, or family court. At the civil court level, many people do appear pro se. They do not want an attorney because attorneys are expensive, and the state doesn't have the resources to appoint an attorney in a small claims matter, for instance. So people who are self-representing and need self-help do have some resources by way of the help desk and the pro se attorney's offices and volunteer lawyers. So I would make sure that the folks who want help and need help get diverted to some of those resources, and those who want to go it alone because they're very capable to do so, then I would give them the leeway to do that.
So just to point out a quick fact, when I started over the foreclosure area in terms of all of the foreclosures, the residential foreclosures in Kings County, the first thing we did before we started the part is we met with all of the organizations, Access Justice, Brooklyn Legal, we met with Legal Services, Grow Brooklyn, CAMBA, we met with all of them. And the reason we did that is we asked them for every day in our courtroom, if you can just switch out and have someone there every day to deal with if we have someone that's pro se. So at any point when someone sits in front of me, and currently now I handle all of the foreclosure settlement conferences, on my virtual calls, I have someone there every day who speaks to them. I adjourn the cases to give them time to meet and go through a process in order to make sure that they have proper guidance, they were informed, and they have the information needed.
Turquoise. I have witnessed several instances where pro se litigants didn't know how to navigate their case, they didn't know how to represent themselves appropriately. And in those instances, it's important to inform them of resource centers within their courthouse that could impart legal information to them and also give them the right to retain counsel. My judge always makes it her priority to give them that opportunity so that if they didn't have opportunity at the time that they appeared, that they would have an opportunity to retain counsel so that they can have adequate due process.
Betsy, one of the things, just as a court attorney now, you scan the courtroom and you see, lawyer, 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 and there's somebody out there. And normally I reach out and I speak to them and say, hey, are you here? Do you understand what's going on? And sometimes it's just asking that question and giving them the opportunity to explain, because even sometimes just coming into a courtroom, as you said, is intimidating. And sometimes you really do need to question. And if they, need counsel as a judge, you question and ask if do you want, to be appointed counsel? And in situations where they're not, you let them know about the resources. But sometimes it's just starting with the human thing of understanding and reaching out and letting them know how the process works.
Siobhan. So I would do exactly what I've been doing as an administrative law judge for the last 6 years when that's happened. I would explain to the person that the consequences of not being prepared could be disastrous and that they should consider consulting an attorney. And if they cannot afford an attorney, they should look at other resources like contacting the Bar Association, and I would give them a brief adjournment to do that. So for example, some of the cases that come before me as an administrative law judge operating without insurance. Your license will be revoked for a year. No one understands what to say, how to defeat that ticket except an attorney. So I always tell the motorist, I'm going to give you a short adjournment to go seek counsel and come back. I would never let the person proceed if they're not prepared.
Kenneth Gale, 2 E's, 2 N's, 1 K. No, listen, we talk about this in law school all the time. We used to write poetry, not us, but Supreme Court justices. It was always about the lofty arguments, the virtue of the law. Now it's the hired gun. It's intimidating. There's a lot of case law. There's a lot of precedent. We don't let people pretend to be lawyers because it's hard. It's difficult. Contracts are the cornerstone of our civilization. We don't really want people litigating complex, important matters pro se if it can be avoided. But we do respect pro se litigants and try to get them the best guidance available. Law is hard. Hire an attorney.
Well, sometimes it's just not possible. And over the years, a lot of us who are in the courts know that there are going to be instances where someone is going to proceed on their own. And a judge has to have certain qualities of patience, namely to sit down, explain what's going on. You can't change the law, but you can accommodate a person by giving them adjournments, explaining what needs to be done, making sure they understand what they're trying to do. And I've had cases where they've conducted trials on their own. And it does require a lot of patience, but it is the right thing to do.
Ms. Eljoy.
Good evening. My name is Eljoy Williams. I'm president of Brooklyn NAACP. The question I have is something that has come up in discussion within our membership, which is oftentimes judges that we elect here in the County of Kings are often appointed to other areas and other jurisdictions. And we believe that is a slight against us as voters to be able to vote for judges and then they're sent somewhere else into another jurisdiction. We currently have a resolution that we're sending to the Office of a Court Administration regarding this issue. Wanted to hear your feedback on that, and would you consider joining our statement on that matter?
That's a very interesting question, and I'm not sure 30 seconds is enough time, but the court administration will tell you that they need to have the flexibility to move judges around. Sometimes they'll send newly elected judges to Manhattan or Staten Island. I've been lucky to be in Brooklyn my whole career, but I understand what you're saying, and you're right. It is a little disrespectful to Brooklyn. There was also a proposal for a unified court system where they wanted to consolidate all the courts, and the judges felt that that was the wrong direction because that would take all of the discretion away from the judges. So I hope your resolution passes.
Hi, Joy. I agree, Kenneth Gale, I agree with the judge. Anytime, not to take you to law school, but anytime the state infringes on a right, and it's your right to elect judges, it has to be narrowly tailored and really mandatory, meaning not mandatory in the sense that the legislature said it, but they have to do it to address a public need. And I think, I can't talk for them, but the court administrators would say, we are infringing slightly on your right to address a need in the court, that we have to move these case logs, we have to get this done, we have to protect the public. So anytime we infringe on a right, we want to make sure it's narrowly tailored and out of necessity. Good luck.
Siobhan, thank you for your question. I share in your frustration with that. Unfortunately, as a judge and a candidate, can't sign off or join that type of cause, but from my understanding, a lot of times when the person's sent somewhere else, eventually they come home, and I think you can find some solace in that.
Betsy, it's frustrating, and sometimes you want to sit down with people, you want to speak to the Office of Court Administration and really understand what's going on, because you elect somebody, you want them to be here, but as Kenneth has said, as the others have said, sometimes there's a balancing and we don't have any control over that. And the best way to do that is to understand what's going on the other side so that they can understand your concerns. So always voice your concerns and always tell them, about what rights you feel are being infringed on. But as us, we can't join on it.
Yes, Turquoise, I understand your concern. You definitely want to be before judges that you place your faith and your trust in. So that's definitely a strong perspective. But oftentimes, a lot of courts are understaffed. So they tend to put judges where they need the most support. And unfortunately, that takes away from the particular place that judge may have been elected. But oftentimes they do come back, so that's always a positive, and they come back with even more experience because they have a broad range of knowledge in various disciplines. But I definitely see your perspective.
I just will agree with all of what my colleague said here. I do understand the frustration, especially when we have forums like this where you're getting to know us and we're getting to know you. It would be nice to know that these are the individuals that would be in the courts in your county. But like everyone else has said, that's not something we necessarily have control over. But I do think the idea that at the end of the day, we do come back and you do sort of end up in Brooklyn is something to at least look at. But I would definitely continue on with what you're doing because it's always good to speak your mind.
Good evening, Ms. Eljoy. Thank you for that question, and thank you for being here on behalf of the NAACP, which has made so many strides to ensure that people like us who are sitting here can be on platforms like this. There was a time when we weren't able to do anything but meet very clandestinely. So now we're here complaining, some of us, about justice moving slowly, inefficiently, and under-resourced. And that's what I hear when I think about judges being transferred from county to county, that one county doesn't have the resources that another has. And so maybe the answer lies therein, I'm not sure, but it's an administrative prerogative that judges who are going to be elected don't get a say in. But I would say power to the people who want change, keep it moving.
I'm Marva Brown, and I'm a practicing attorney right now. I have cases in criminal court, Supreme Court here in Brooklyn. And so when I'm elected, I can't preside in a court where I have still clients and open cases. And so it would be an expectation that I would be sent to another borough, at least for a certain time period where those cases are closed, and then I would come home to my home borough. But I think it's important to also acknowledge that, the way courts are run in different communities, educate us all and put us into perspective. And so what happens in Queens is not what happens in Brooklyn, but we can possibly learn from other boroughs and what they're doing in those places and bring it back here and make our courts even better. So I encourage you to keep your fight, but understand positive things can come out of it as well.
Thank you. Switching gears to Ms. Michelle. Did you want to ask a question? No? Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Michelle Teje. I serve with my colleagues here. We're with NOBLE, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. And thank you for this opportunity to ask a question. We heard from our youth. Thank you very much for stepping up and sharing those questions. Some of you I did meet at your school. And they asked specifically about programs. However, I didn't hear anyone mention some of the programs that exist today already. And I wasn't clear in your responses to that question. So can you speak specifically to programs that you're aware of and that you participate in that can help our youth today? Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I do want to recognize that Turquoise, who I didn't tell to say this, mentioned my program and Erica Ford's. But something I'd be interested in, just to make it a 1, 2, 3 question, maybe if you could recognize a program that's mental health, substance use, and youth program. So one, just name a program that you know of each of those, if you could. I started with
Marva. I love YCP. It's a program for kids who have been arrested with guns, and it gives them religious counseling, employment counseling, educational counseling, and a social worker to work with them. And hopefully once they complete the program, the gun case is dismissed and they're able to move on with their lives. I also like Exalt. It's a good program for the youth. Families and Friends of the Wrongfully Convicted does good work in the community, helping people who have incarcerated family members, keeping families unified. And there's so many, but those are 3 that I really like. And SOS, because Save Our Streets is important for all of us. And I'm from Crown Heights. I gotta shout out Crown Heights.
So I went to a school where some of the kids came to class with their guns. So what I like to do for people who are prone to violence and other types of crime is put them together in situations where they understand the outcomes. And so for my own sons, I enrolled them in the Police Explorers program so that they can get an inside look at what's available to them if they wanted to do the right things, and also to allow them an opportunity to interface with law enforcement so that they can see in their faces, not the face of hardened criminals, but the faces of their own children in mind.
Actually, I was going to say this. I was going to say the Police Explorers program as well. I think that's very important. I actually, when I was working with my judge earlier, one of my earlier judges, we worked with GEMS, and we were working with juveniles, and I worked with GEMS also in my sorority, and I'm a member of a sorority, and we also worked with GEMS as well. So I think there are a number of, I know Marva mentioned YCP, and that's another great one. And you say SOS, I don't live in Crown Heights, but because my sorority serves that community, we also have done some work with them as well.
Yes, Turquoise. I had mentioned Build the Block, which is a program founded by co-chair Racklin, the late Michael Williams, and Shiny Culture. And it's a program where it's community driven to have basically a very ground roots system where there are healing circles where individuals involved in criminal activity have the chance to speak, have a chance to express their traumas, and through that they're able to become whole and to lead in their community and prevent further recidivism. And then I also mentioned Life Camp, which also has a similar focus.
Betsy, we've heard of a lot of great programs already. My experience is mostly with psychiatric and agencies, and a lot of the grassroots things like Big Brother, Big Sister, and a lot of those programs help
pair people one-on-one with people so that they can have a role model and somebody in their life. Specifically, some of the programs like New Horizons and some of the other mental health treatment programs, a lot of those kids who are in psychiatric institutions get transferred to those programs, and they have on-site services and learning assistance, and that's the stuff that I
Siobhan, I'm a big advocate of education, and so I love the Teen Lift program because it allows students to come every first Saturday of the month for 6 months, and there's a different speaker from a different field who has overcome obstacles, and they speak to these children, and at the end of the program, they get to take a tour to 8 Black colleges in pairs, free of charge. Well, you get scholarships, and you visit these Black colleges to get access and understand what it's like to be at one. And then you also get scholarships to go to one of the colleges. And a lot of people don't think they can afford college, so this affords our children the opportunity to see that they can.
Kenneth Gale, I was taught that idle hands make the devil's workshop. So the first thing is get them busy young. Brooklyn Bonnies, youth baseball, 75 years. Brooklyn Skyhawks, 50 years, 78th Precinct Council baseball for 70 plus years. The Laguerres in Brownsville with Mo Better Jags, great football program, recently started a track program for the young ladies. Then on the more advocacy tip, we have the Brooklyn Combine, a couple of great lawyers in there, Ken Montgomery, Ken's a great name, Keith White. But then informally, there's a lot of people with outsized influence doing the good work in the community. Jelani Marshariki, Timothy Marshall in East Flatbush. These are the people who are really the violence disruptors, and they're not doing it from an organized banner, but from personal relationships, parents calling them on their cell phones, they're coming out, they're meeting you at arraignments, they're asking you for help. That's how you get it done.
Thank you, Bernie Graham. I have to be quite honest, for the last 10 years, I've been doing medical malpractice trials and complex litigation that doesn't touch on that type of youth services. But before I got on the bench, I was the chair of the YMCA board in Park Slope. I had been an athletic coach of a number of different sports, and there was a Project Reach Youth organization that did good work, but that's going back 20 years.
I just want to point out, I think it's important just for viewers at home and here, the reason why that question is really important and your knowledge of community-based organizations is important is because from the bench, you are able to demonstrate your ability and willingness to problem solve by calling on your community partners to help with the people before you. That's why, there's different organizations. We talked a lot about youth here, which is wonderful. Exalt being one of the ATIs that's from the city. There's Phoenix House, there's ICL, there's all these different programs that if you have a profound understanding of such programs, then you could better serve the people in front of you and our communities. It helps keep us all safer. So I encourage all of you to take a deep dive into what exists in this great borough of Brooklyn. Now, speaking of greatness, I call upon Bigga, because we got.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bigger. I'm the program manager for Brownsville and Violence Out, which is truly the heart of Brooklyn. That was for the young brother that was here. Threw a little shot. My question is, if you're appointed to family court, what would be your approach to keeping the parents, assuring the parents a serious relationship with their children, even if there's justice involved?
So just an added layer.
Especially for men.
Yeah, just an added layer. I think we talked a lot about where IDV court, domestic violence is involved. How do we keep kids connected to their parents in those difficult and tricky situations? Did you go first already? You can start out of order.
Thank you for the question, Bernie Graham. When I was in family court, I had the custody, visitation, family offense part, which dealt with a visitation for fathers and mothers for their children if they've been separated. And for a judge to keep a family together requires extra work to make sure that the visitation and the obstacles that are in the way of that parent seeing their child. And there was always a perception that fathers weren't getting enough of credit to be a good father or to have access. And I've certainly made every effort as a father myself to make sure that happened, but it does take extra work on the part of a judge.
Kenneth Gale, and I agree. Thank you, Bigger, for the question. I'm sure my contemporaries will agree that they were all taught, like me in law school, that parental rights are next to godly rights. They're the highest rights we have in our body of law. It comes from common law. It wasn't passed by a legislature. It's probably present in every civil democratic society on earth. I think every judge has a right to make sure that the bonds between parents and child are maintained. And when we talk about the state not entering your home, that's what we're talking about. The state not infringing on your relationship with your children. And if we have to be cognizant that that right is close to godly rights.
Siobhan. So in family court, it's a tricky situation, obviously. It's matters of the heart. It's a lot of emotional things going on. It's sort of driven by emotions. And as a judge, I think the main thing that we can do is sort of make sure that if there's a child's attorney or a court attorney, that they're following up if the orders are not being met and if the litigants are reporting back to the court. So family court, because there are no fees involved with filing things, if visitations are not being met or there's some problem, they can always file petitions to come back. So I think it's to encourage the litigants to report back so that we actually know what's going on when they're not in court.
Betsy, in my work as a clinical social worker, one of the issues that people never really look at is that the family dynamic requires you to speak to people. And a lot of times, yes, we can prescribe, visitation, but if you're not speaking to the gentleman about and having services where he's able to discuss some of the issues he's having so that he can learn how to bond. I think we talked about partnership with other agencies. You have to understand that the family dynamic is not just what the law says it is. There's a bigger dynamic. And I think that it means that partnership with other agencies and learning how to not just do therapy on the child and just prescribing someone to sit with someone for a time and have somebody watch them, but also have somebody talk to that gentleman and explain that he has the time to talk about what is scaring him about bonding with his child, or in the alternative, what is it that he wants and what his goals are and how important it is to be in that child's life. So it's not just the law itself, it's for a judge to know that there are other services and to link that person with that services because you can make that order.
Thank you, Biga. I think it's just creating bonds between parent and child or nurturing those bonds are something that's, for some people, it's really easy, and for others, it's not. And unfortunately, in many of our communities, there are not examples of healthy family relationships. And that's why I think it's very important for organizations like Man Up or like the Fatherhood Program by SEO and stuff like that, that really teaches what it is to be a parent and how to build a relationship with your child. So again, utilizing those resources in the community to help people learn how to interact with their children in a healthy way.
So I think of the old adage, it takes a village, and it really does. We have seen the breakdown of families of color in particular in this very wealthy community that we still call Brooklyn. And my mind only goes to the lack of resources. It's always a paucity of resources, education, opportunities, employment, you name it, the lack thereof. And we've had lots of programs for a really long time. And so when we talk about justice, when we talk about family and youth and the elderly, we can mentally challenge people with mental illnesses and the like. It really does center around community when you're talking about solving issues. And the judicial system is just one small piece of that. but it's all of us working together in community, and judges for their parts, meeting people where they are. Go to the source, go to the root, and keep the discussions going. We can't superimpose our own ideals of what a family is like unless we have communication from the families, from the dads, from the moms, from the children, and from all of the caretakers in the family situation.
Obviously, I'm in agreement with what Linda said, and one of the things, especially in family court, the biggest from the judge's perspective is they're always looking at the best interests of the child. What I will say, again, I don't want to reiterate what everyone has said. Obviously, resources are important. But one of the things that you realize, and the inability sometimes for parents to connect with children, and specifically, as you said, fathers connecting with children, has to do with, it's not about them personally. Sometimes it's about their lack of resources. It's about not having a job. It's about all these other things. And so I think it's important to make sure, or at least even from a judge's perspective, to understand or have some level of understanding of what the issues are within a family dynamic. And then you could address that individually. And maybe you can see where things can be helped so that there is a specific place that you can sort of place them, and not just one, blanket place. You can make sure that you find out exactly what the issues are.
Turquoise. I believe the goal is always to maintain a cohesive family unit and to also consider the best interest of the child under all circumstances. It's very important that a judge is very sensitive to the needs of every party involved, whether it be the father, the mother, the child. Hear from the child, see where their traumas lie. Hear from the attorney for the child, see their perspective on what they were told. Hear from the respective parents, and then see where the gaps are and where there might be issues that have to be uncovered and addressed. So I think it definitely takes being a careful listener and evaluating all the circumstances at hand to craft a peaceful and successful resolution.
Just a fun fact here. A lot of people don't know this, but in Brooklyn, 1/3 of the cases before the Kings County are domestic violence related. So we need to be thinking about that and the family unit and how to be cohesive and ensure that we're doing the best for everybody in that way. I noticed that Ms. Barbara McFadden's here, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but Ms. Barbara, did you want to ask a question? We need your whole title, Ms. Barbara, too.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Barbara McFadden. I am the resident leader at Sheepshead Bay Nostrand Housing Development, and I'm the first vice chair for the 5 boroughs. I cover the citywide presence. That's Manhattan, Bronx, Long Island, Manhattan, Staten Island, and did I leave anything out?
Queens.
Queens. What I would like to say to the judges that what I find disturbing.
Candidates trying to be.
Yeah, the candidates. Yeah,
except
candidates. But sometimes it's good to claim it, What I want to put out there in Sheepshead Bay Nostrand, we have a Hill of Violence program. You guys can look it up. My captain out in the Sheepshead Bay, his name is Darby St. Fort, 61st Precinct. We all got the internet. You can look him up, get his number and everything. Yes. I call Darby St. Fort the godfather of the crime intervention prevention. And the reason why I state that, even though he's a commander and his job is to make arrests, but what I like about Darby is when his officers out in Sheepshead Bay and they lock up a youth or an adult, the first question is, what did he do? Johnny went in the store. Johnny could be 6, we just using Johnny's name. Johnny could be 16. He went in the store, he grabbed the juice, and he grabbed the cake. That's robbery, petty robbery. But we putting Johnny, 16 years old, in jail because he took a cake, but we didn't ask our lawyers or appointed lawyers from the courts, if this kid made this robbery, did you assess his home? Did you find out if Johnny come from a 2-parent like I did, mother and father? Is they working? And if they're not working, what type of income? Is they getting benefits, putting food? Because 9 out of 10, we make assumptions, oh, they got food at home, but that's not true. I'm dealing with this every day in Sheepshead Bay, no strength. We're assuming that these children have food, and they actually don't. You'd be surprised what parents do. Bust their food stamps, don't go to their appointments, don't go to their medical, neglection. But you say, that's not our job. Yes, it is. It's my job. I'm gonna tell you why it's my job. Because as the resident leader, who you think they come to? The elected officials are speaking to me. The captains are speaking to me. Everybody is coming to Barbara McFadden, Hakeem Jeffries. Everybody is coming to me. So what did I do? I joined in with the commander at the 61st Precinct. We got this Hill of Violence program. And let me tell you what we did. I sat down with Darby St. Fort. We had a list. We looked at all the children that was doing havoc in my neighborhood. He's tearing Sheepshead Bay up. We got to grab him. We got to get a hold of Bernard. We got to get a hold of James. We got to put him on our side. We didn't lock him out. We put him in the Heal the Violence program where he's getting counseling every week, where he's getting job training, where he's getting mental health. And you know, since them children been in that program, they have not been arrested. And keep in mind, the DA office assessed that because Dana Ratchlin, that sits right there, everybody knows Dana? She's part of the program. She's been a great aspiration to the children there. When I mean part of the program,
Do you have a question, Ms.
That was
Barbara?
fine.
I swear to God, I didn't plug my program yet. Do you have a question for
okay,
the candidates?
so my question,
You guys
my,
are making me blush.
my question to the candidates, it wouldn't be more of a question, it's more of a demand. If you get in, no, it's more of a demand, not even a question.
Ms. Barbara will show
They
us
asking
support.
questions, but can I put a demand there? So I'm gonna make a demand. If they get in office, I wanna see more of the Heal of Violence program throughout the 5 boroughs, especially in NYCHA. Let's save our children. Let's stop throwing them in jail. Let's get down to the root of the program. If it's mental health, he don't need to be in jail. He need to be in a program. He need to be in a resource. He needs psychotherapy. We need to get to the root of the problem. And that's it. Thank you.
And I'll just say, Ms. Barbara will show up to your office or your courtroom and follow up. Just be sure about that.
I'm Ms. McFadden, Marva Brown, answering your question or your comment, your demand. I challenge you, keep doing what you're doing because it is you, a member of the community, the voice of the community, that's gonna get the funding for that program, that's gonna get the law changed so that we can have the ability to put kids in those programs. So keep doing what you're doing. That's all I can say, because you are the voice of the people and you are the one that's gonna create the change so that we can do what you demand of us.
Just because we are going to run out of time, why don't we do a 30-second to 45-second closeout final statement here? And then we're going to pop a QR code up on the screen and we'll send it in the chat for those on Zoom, which is just a final feedback from the event. So if everybody just wants to close us out here, 45 seconds to round us out, okay?
Wow, this has been very powerful. So just to reintroduce myself as Marva Brown, thank you all for being here and being engaged and participating. I've been seeing so many head nods, so I appreciate you staying awake with us and doing this. Just to my final plug for myself, I am a litigator. I fight for people in court every day, and I want to use the law to improve people's lives. I think what my career has been is acknowledging the fact that people get to court on the worst day of their lives. They've been wronged, whether they've been arrested, they've committed a crime, they're the victim of a crime, they're victim of domestic violence, they've been hit by a car, medical malpractice, whatever. It's the worst day of their lives. But my goal as a judge is to use the law, to use my discretion, to use my unbiased view and love and care for community and people to improve people's lives, because the legal system is here to change people's lives. So I appreciate you all being here tonight, and thank you. Vote Marva Brown.
Ms. McFadden, thank you for coming. I receive your demand, and when I'm elected to the civil court judge, any of your children have a home in my courtroom. And not because they're in trouble, but because they want a place to come and be safe. And The reason I have stepped into this race is because I want to continue to deepen my commitment, the commitment that I made when I was a young teenager in college to serve and protect the public. I didn't have the guts to do it as a person in the military, but I had the brains to get through law school at age 23 and go right into the justice system. And so in that vein, I'm here to serve, protect, be an ear and a voice and a heart to receive all of you who come to the court and really lay down your burdens. But before you get to that point, you'll have an open door in my courtroom to troubleshoot and figure out what we can do to prevent anyone having to need the system.
Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for being here and for getting to know me personally. Ms. McFadden, I must say also to you, I take on your challenge, and I want even the community here to hear what she's saying, because in order for her to get resources, we need to know that these programs exist, and she can't get funding unless we are committed to making sure that our children, our youth are consistently being protected, especially if there's mental illness, especially if there's domestic violence, especially if there are any other issues in the home. My name is Monique Holloman. Like I said, a majority of my time has been spent in the civil court area, although I did work in criminal and family for a short while, but I'm committed to working in the foreclosure department. And although that piece, that deals with the community every single day. And I've been committed to making sure that any pro se defendants continuously have representation, that they're informed, that they're aware of their rights, and making sure that they have an opportunity to excel and at least address any concerns and save their home on their terms. So all I can say is I look forward to speaking with you again in another forum at any point in time, and I'm open to hearing from you. And again, vote for Monique Holloman. Thank you.
Hey, hi, Turquoise Haskin. Ms. McFadden, I had the opportunity to meet you at a community forum a couple weeks ago, and I applaud you for your advocacy and your hard work. And I also appreciate all the meaningful discourse we had this evening. I could relate to many of your stories, and it's very touching. I'm empathetic, I'm fair, I'm just. And I look forward to serving the people of Brooklyn in the greater capacity of a judge. This is not my first day on the job. I'll hit the floor running, knowing that I have the competency to address any matter that comes before me, whether it's criminal, whether it's foreclosure, whether it's medical malpractice, whether it's personal injury. I have the knowledge, I have the know-how, I'm a quick thinker, I'm a quick study. And I look forward to forging bonds with all of you, and we work together to get the job done, and vote Turquoise Haskin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Betsy Jean-Jacques, and thank you to all of you in this room who are working hard to make this community better. Back in 2004, when I was an intern at Legal Aid, I saw that there was more than meets the eye. So I went back to school and I said, no, I need a social work degree because I need to understand what other things are going on. I spent 11 years of my career working with people in mental institutions, people who are vulnerable, people that people don't like. And I've worked and advocated for them because I want a courtroom where everyone is listened to. I want a courtroom where everyone has their opportunity to be heard, where you feel safe. You know, a courtroom where students can come and listen to what's going on. A courtroom where you know, well, Judge Jean-Jacques is here and she's got this. She's gonna listen to this. She's gonna know that there's something else going on. And she's gonna listen to you because she knows she has the training and she has the understanding, because she's been everywhere in Brooklyn, in people's homes, in the hospital at that worst moment, to understand, listen, it's just more than just what your offense is. So please vote Betsy with 2 E's.
Hi, I'm Siobhan Sandin. I just want to thank everyone for this evening. I thank the district leaders, but this is the meat and bones for me. Talking to the people from the community who have the hard questions with passion that you delivered tonight. I hope we were able to answer your questions. If you have more questions for me, My website is sandinforjudge.com. I accept emails, I respond back to them. So out of law school, I ran my own practice for 10 years. I took any case that I could take to try to get experience. A lot of cases I took where people were not able to pay me, but I saw every case from the beginning to the end, no matter what the financial situation of the person was, because I knew that person could not get represented. The last case that I took, a very good friend of mine in her 70s clicked an email and got $18,000 stolen from her account. No attorney would take that because it was not lucrative enough. I took that case for her for no money and got her that money back and then some, because it was important to me to see justice done, and no one else would take that case. And that's what we become lawyers to do the things that no one else is going to do, not to just make a profit. I spent the last 6 years as an administrative law judge in traffic court, and you're probably saying it's just traffic court. No, it's not to me, because the person on the other side, they've waited to have their day in court to be heard and to say their piece, and I would treat them all with respect, like they're going to jail if they're found guilty, and I would bring that same passion and compassion to the civil court. Vote for me. Thank you.
I want to read this so I get it right. Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall said, mere access to the courthouse doors does not by itself assure proper functioning of the adversary process. So just because our neighbors can go to court doesn't mean that they're getting justice. You know, justice doesn't require that there be a happy situation for any of the litigants. But what justice does require is that the litigants are heard. When you have a judiciary that doesn't reflect the community it serves, can anyone really feel like they're being heard? Civil court judges matter. Representation matters. I'm Kenneth Gale for Civil Court Judge. Thank you.
Hi, Bernie Graham. I'm running for Surrogates Court. There weren't too many questions about the Surrogates Court, but that's okay. No, but what I wanted to say is that a lot of the issues that came up about families, about violence, about housing, are all matters that do touch on a surrogates court, because the surrogates court handles everybody's most important aspects of their lives. When their parents pass away, when their children are disabled, all of these things tie together. It's all related. And that's why it's important that we have judges like myself who have a lot of experience in all these different areas, so that when we do find and are facing these issues, we're empathetic, we're sympathetic, and we understand the law. So that's why I'm running for surrogate.
So I just want to thank everybody here for coming tonight from all across Brooklyn, the young people who prepared questions and decided to spend their night with us, the candidates, my fellow district leaders. This has been a tremendous honor to host this, be the first time that this happens here in Brooklyn, and maybe possibly the state or the city. This should serve as a precedent. We heard from people with diverse backgrounds and interests, lived experiences. I encourage everybody in the audience to find out who your district leader is and talk about the candidates that you liked and the things that you liked hearing or didn't like or you felt was missing. I also encourage everybody to please fill out the survey, which will be shared with the district leaders so we can get your feedback, because it is the job of the district leaders to vote on who ends up on the ballot to fill those seats. And last but not least, sorry for the people on Zoom, we must eat all of the pizza in the back. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to the White Hotel. Thank you to everybody who stayed on at home. And guess what? We did this in 2 hours. So $8:28, we killed it. Oh, and let's have all of the committee members come up just so you could see all of the lovely people on our committee who've done so much work to get us here tonight. We thank them. And not here, but special shout out would be to Yamil, the executive director, who's been on all of that Zooms and helping us, and our chair, Rodney's, and of course, Henry Butler. So thank you all so much. And again, enjoy the pizza and refreshments in the back, and look forward to reading everybody's reviews.